In the year 2267, Earth's climate has deteriorated, making it uninhabitable due to issues like acid rain and contaminated water. The entire human population now resides on an overcrowded space station orbiting Earth. Dr. Laura Portman sees an advertisement for Rhea Planet, a second Earth where her sister and family have settled. However, she lacks the funds to relocate there. To save money, she takes a job as a crew doctor on the aging cargo ship Cassandra, operated by Cooper Enterprise, which will take 8 years. The ship is automated, and while most crew members will be in cryo-sleep, Dr. Laura must stay awake for monitoring. Each ship now has a security officer, Samuel Decker, due to ongoing terrorist threats. The crew is warned not to enter the cargo area where construction materials are stored before their journey begins. Almost 3 years later, Laura wakes up and begins monitoring the ship's systems. She frequently sends video messages to her sister Anna on Rhea, but it takes months for the messages to reach her and for replies to come back. One day, while monitoring, she hears strange noises coming from the cargo area. She decides to check the restricted zone and sees something unsettling at the door. As she prepares to report it, Security Officer Decker, who has just woken from cryo-sleep, arrives. Following protocol, Laura wakes the captain, and together they head to the cold, restricted area where the cargo is stored. After the captain suddenly falls and dies, the crew wakes up and Lindbergh takes charge. She assigns tasks. Decker is to investigate security, while Laura conducts the captain's autopsy. The engineers work on a stuck door. During her examination, Laura discovers an implant in the captain's optical nerve, indicating he had entered the restricted area, marked with a biohazard warning. She informs Decker, who advises her to keep this quiet for now and suggests they investigate further. Using the captain's access card, they sneak into the restricted area and find numerous cooling containers holding human bodies. Laura opens one and discovers a little girl inside. They bring the container to the main office, where the captain feigns surprise, which Laura and Decker notice. The captain instructs Laura to leave the container untouched and to stay focused on their mission. They realize that the cargo does not contain construction materials, but rather human containers. Laura secretly takes the girl to her lab, while the captain discreetly asks Yoshida to gather information on Decker. In her lab, Laura scans the little girl and discovers a chip in her brain, leaving her confused about Decker's silence regarding certain information. Laura sends a message to her sister expressing her dissatisfaction with life on the ship and her desire to join her family, but she's shocked to receive a reply in just 20 minutes, knowing it usually takes months. Curious, Laura confronts Decker about their mission and the mysterious Station 42. He describes it as an abandoned location. Meanwhile, Yoshida discovers that Decker has woken from cryo-sleep multiple times and tampered with the camera recordings. Lindbergh, growing increasingly suspicious, believes Decker may be involved in Lacroix's death and attempts to arrest him. This leads to a confrontation where Decker tries to resist. Yoshida and Vespucci step in to subdue him, but during the struggle, Decker sustains an injury. Laura quickly intervenes, insisting that they take him to the medical bay to prevent any risk of blood contamination. In the medical bay, Laura tends to Decker's wound while deliberately ignoring his attempts to engage her in conversation. Before she leaves, Decker reveals a shocking secret. They are not heading to Station 42, but instead are on a course for Rhea. After this revelation, Decker is returned to cryo-sleep. Later, Laura privately asks Yoshida to verify the ship's destination. He confirms her suspicions, stating that they are indeed traveling to a location other than Station 42. Since it's impossible to change the ship's coordinates once the flight has commenced, it becomes clear that this route was planned from the start. When Laura mentions that her messages are arriving quickly to Rhea, Yoshida points out that Lindbergh has been dishonest with them, as she should have known the actual coordinates. After this revelation, Yoshida returns to her computer hoping to uncover more information. Meanwhile, while Laura is having a drink with the other crew members, she notices fluctuations in the power supply, which raises her concerns about Yoshida's well-being. Deciding to check on her, Laura is horrified to find Yoshida already dead. In response to this alarming discovery, the crew quickly checks on Decker and realizes that he has escaped from his cryopod. The logs reveal that someone had intentionally released him, adding to the growing tension and suspicion among the crew. The armed crew began searching for Decker. Laura and Vespucci went to the lower deck and found an open duct, indicating Decker's potential escape. Vespucci went to the other side while Laura climbed in, discovering a secret chamber filled with trash. She was suddenly attacked by a man, whom she shot during the struggle. They soon realized the man was the terrorist Bruckner, and nearby Laura found his belongings, including photos of machine strikers and a tablet showing them growing food and purifying water on Earth. This suggested that Earth was still livable and could be cleaned up instead of abandoned. Just then, Vespucci startled her with news that they had located Decker. They returned to the deck, and Lindbergh ordered the crew to physically confront Decker to make him talk. Under pressure, Decker revealed that Rhea was a simulation and that the people in the containers were being used as neural units, explaining that the government had lied to prevent panic about habitable areas on Earth. Decker admitted that Bruckner had gone insane and killed Lacroix but spared Yoshida. While Vespucci and Prokop took Decker away, Lindbergh instructed Laura to care for the child and return her to the cargo hold. She also asked Laura to go back into cryo-sleep, promising to cover her shift. Growing suspicious, Laura drew her gun, but Lindbergh quickly restrained her. Lindbergh revealed that the settlement on Rhea had failed and that the simulation was only a temporary fix until a new terraformed planet could be found. She intended to kill both Laura and Decker under the guise of them having murdered the captain. Meanwhile, Vespucci and Prokop confronted Decker in a corridor, demanding information. After discovering Lindbergh's involvement, they decided to capture her and put her into cryo-sleep. Vespucci suggested they connect themselves to Rhea, believing the simulation was better than their current lives. In the medical bay, Laura began waking the child safely. The crew then devised a plan to finish their trip to Station 42, where they could connect Laura to the system to send the truth to Earth and blow up the antenna. For the next few days, Decker and Laura spent time together discussing how nature had reclaimed Earth. When they arrived at Station 42, they delayed the cargo delivery for 30 minutes to execute their plan. Laura found the child awake and wandering, so she rushed back to keep her safe. Meanwhile, Prokop and Vespucci secretly plotted against the plan, wanting to connect to Rhea. To do this, they needed Lindbergh's badge, and Vespucci burned his hand with a liquid to retrieve it from the tank. At the same time, Prokop adjusts the cargo unloading schedule, shortening it from 30 minutes to just 10. They use Lindbergh's badge to gain access to the units, disconnecting two individuals so that they can take their places in the simulation. As the system prepares for the delivery protocol, it accidentally wakes Lindbergh from her rest. Meanwhile, Decker is outside the ship, performing a spacewalk to attach explosives to the station's antenna. After completing this task, he sets out to find Ariane's container, and fortunately, he finds it quickly. Laura decides to accompany him, but as she joins him, her suit malfunctions, causing her to start drifting away into space. Decker quickly catches her to prevent her from floating off. He then explains to her that the units cannot be unplugged without putting the lives of the individuals inside at risk. Understanding the urgency of the situation, Laura requests to be connected to the simulation so she can meet her sister and send a message. At that moment, the ship initiates automatic cargo delivery, leaving Decker and Laura with only a few minutes before it begins its return journey. Decker connects Laura to Rhea, and she is amazed to find herself in a beautiful forest. Nearby, she discovers a house where she reunites with Ariane and her children, feeling a wave of emotion about the looming threat to their happiness. Conflicted by her feelings, Laura runs into the woods to record a message for Earth, exposing the truth about Rhea. She finishes just as Decker wakes her up with alarming news. Since the cell unit of Laura's jetpack is broken, Decker gives her his, knowing she is the only one who can make it back to the ship. Although Laura hesitates to leave him behind, Decker insists that she must protect the child, who serves as their only proof. Suddenly, the ship's thrusters engage, pushing them away from the station. Decker uses this force to let go of Laura, allowing himself to drift off into space. Heartbroken yet determined, Laura activates the jetpack and makes her way back to the ship just moments before the station's antenna explodes. As the ship switches to autopilot mode for its return journey, Laura begins searching for the child and unexpectedly runs into Lindbergh. A confrontation ensues between them, escalating into a physical fight. During the struggle, Lindbergh grabs an axe, but in her haste, she accidentally damages a nearby gas tank. Laura pushes Lindbergh into an airlock, successfully trapping her inside. The airlock then opens, sending Lindbergh out into the vacuum of space. After this intense encounter, Laura locates the child, who is calmly enjoying a meal. Together, they start to establish a new routine for the remainder of their journey home. Meanwhile, Laura's message about the truth of their situation is transmitted, reaching various stations around Earth and informing people of what has really been happening.